for joining us this afternoon. My name is Begum, and I'm the MPP, Member of Provincial Parliament for Scarborough Southwest. And this afternoon, it is my honor and privilege to be debating Bill 217, an act to proclaim the month of Filipino Heritage Month of June as Filipino Heritage Month. And the debate will be taking place, the second reading of this debate will be taking place this afternoon in the Ontario Legislature. So today, in this press conference, I am so delighted to be joined by three wonderful community leaders who need no introduction, but I would like to take a moment to first introduce Paulina Corpuz, the Filipino-Canadian community leader who has been working tirelessly to make Filipino Heritage Month a reality in Ontario. Paulina has been leading the Philippines Independence Day Council and PATAC and has been a force behind this bill as well. I'm also joined by Daniela Salcedo, and the president of PhilCasa, the Filipino-Canadian Student Association, who has been a strong voice for students across this province and has been a community leader, also another force for this bill as well. I'm also joined by Steve Pagao, the president of the Philippines Chamber of Commerce, an organization I had the privilege of meeting during this pandemic that has been doing excellent work supporting local Filipino businesses, small businesses during this difficult time. Steve has also been an advocate for this bill, and I'm so honored to have you all three here with me today. So first, I would like to introduce, actually have our little video clip that we have put together with some amazing community leaders, including yourselves, and their thoughts in terms of what Filipino Heritage Month means for them. So I'm going to ask Maisha, who's going to play this for us. Go ahead, Maisha.
No sound.
Honor to represent such a diverse group of people here in Scarborough, including the vibrant Filipino community. Filipino Canadians have made enormous contributions to our province and our country. During this pandemic, we have seen Filipino Canadians on the front lines saving lives every single day. With the support of local Filipino organizations and leaders, we're calling on the provincial government to proclaim the month of June as Filipino Heritage Month.
Here with my Filipino-Canadian healthcare colleagues today are nurse clerks, social work. Celebrating Filipino for us is recognizing the tremendous work of the healthcare workers of Filipino descent and their contributions towards advocating for, taking care of, and protecting Canadians. Mabuhay!
Hi, my name is Kuya Julius, and celebrating Filipino Heritage Month means a lot to me because of the values that have been passed down from my family and friends. As a Filipino Canadian and servant leader in my community, where I live and where I work also, we value something called brokenness. So we are extremely dependable on God, flexible, teachable, resilient, and I'm always asking myself, how can I love my neighbor?
Hi, my name is Ali Rasul. I'm a Filipina artist based in Toronto. Filipino Heritage Month is really important to me because I think it's important to give community a chance to come together and celebrate my heritage and, a chance for me to share my heritage with all Torontonians, all Ontarians, Filipino or not Filipino.
I am Steve Pagao, representing the Filipino Chamber of Commerce, Toronto. And on behalf of the Filipino-Canadian business community, I wish to express our profound gratitude to MPP Begum in working hard for the approval by the Ontario Provincial Parliament of Bill 217. As everyone knows, Filipinos are resilient, dedicated, and most of all, hardworking. They give their best in what they do and would sacrifice their lives for others, as exemplified by those Filipino frontliners during the pandemic.
MPP Begum's Bill 317 will particularly recognize the contribution of Filipinos in Ontario's economic, political, social, and cultural development, especially considering that we work in so many different industries that directly support thousands of lives across the province. I look forward to the Filipino Heritage Month in Ontario to not only be a celebration of culture, but a call to action for the provincial government and our fellow community members to tackle the issues that our community continues to face.
My name is Ben Corpus, the co-chair of the Filipino Workers Network in Canada. The Filipino Heritage Month is the time and space for Filipinos to reach out to one another and together celebrate their culture and heritage. It is that time for everyone to learn the Filipino DNA and how it is woven into the Canadian fabric to encourage civic and political engagement and promote the great contribution of the community in the socio-economic life in Canada.
Kumusta? My name is Marianne Tolentino, and for me, introducing the Filipino Heritage Month in Ontario is our opportunity to expand on the ongoing work towards social, economic, and political rights in the province and in the country. I hope in this way we center Filipinos who face several intersecting barriers. So newcomers, migrant workers, students, LGBTQ plus Filipinos, and Filipinos in precarious housing and working conditions, among many others.
Hi, this is Kuya Alex. What Filipino heritage means to me. The cultural heritage and natural history of the Philippines have a very high value in its youth. Toronto has the largest population of Filipinos in Canada, and there are over 330,000 Filipino Canadians here in Ontario. Let us all unite and help us mark June as Filipino Heritage Month across Ontario and show your support for the bill. Kaya ano pa hinihintay mo, kabayan? Join ka na at ating isulong at isabatas ang Filipino Heritage Month. Mabuhay!
Let's make Filipino Heritage Month a reality in Ontario. And let's come together to recognize and celebrate the amazing Filipino community across this province.
That was so beautiful. And thank you to all the community organizers, leaders, for coming together and sending us all the videos. I know it means so much to so many of you, and I think this really demonstrated the passion and the love people have for their culture and identity. And I hope that through this bill we can amplify that and hope that during the month of June we can actually make sure that other communities get to learn about Filipino community and the amazing things that the community members have had to offer. So I won't take much. I'm just going to kind of elaborate what's happening this afternoon, which is the second reading. So as you will recall, in October last year, we did the first reading of this bill. And today it'll be the second reading of this bill, and I'm hoping that we'll have all party support. It's an amazing piece of legislation that recognizes the culture, the community, the people, but also emphasizes on the need to support Filipinos and Filipinas during our especially as we face this pandemic and the contributions that they have made across this province. The fact that Ontario has over 330,000 Filipinos living here, and this bill has been brought forward. This is the fourth time, and I think it's about time that we make this take place, make this happen. So I'm going to pass it over to our first guest here today, Paulina Corpus. Go ahead. So I'm going to ask you to unmute first and then speak.
Okay. Yes, I had difficulty unmuting. Yes, thank you, Dali, for this opportunity again to share my passion about the Filipino Heritage Month. You know that I started the work to declare June as a Filipino Heritage Month in November 2016. And with the help of PATAC, which is the Philippine Advancement Through Arts and Culture, and the Filipino Workers Network, signatures were gathered in various events in the community in the summer of 2017. And on November 8th, that was the historic declaration of the City of Toronto, all because of the support also of our community. About 50 organizations and individuals in very, very short time responded to the call to send endorsements to the City of Toronto. So thanks to Nitin Chan for that, the then Councillor Nitin Chan. And that motion actually called for the provincial and federal government to do the same. So several days after that, without the PC party, MPP Raymond Cho of the Progressive Conservative actually presented a motion to declare June as a Philippine Heritage Month, but it was turned down. So what happened was NDP MPP Bill Peter Tabuns actually did a bill and then followed again by MPP Cho and then by this one MPP Michael Collin. So yeah, and it was frustrating to see all three parties agree that the Filipino-Canadian community should be recognized for their contributions. But after the second reading, somebody says no for somebody says no, and then the parliament was prorogued. So the cudgel was taken on by liberals at the federal level, which is why we now have the federal bill. But right now, back to you at Bill 217, the act to declare June as a Filipino Heritage Month, which is something really important for me because I feel actually that at the provincial level is where my primary goal when I started this work was to be more effective because it's the provincial government who is responsible for education. And for the Filipino-Canadian story to be in the mainstream, we need this 1 month of time and space to let people know who we are and what contributions we have given to Ontarians, as well as for the Filipino-Canadian community to gather together to really also discuss among themselves how they can advance the Filipino community in all aspects of Ontario and Canada, most especially the political aspect of it. So thank you for this opportunity to just refresh you about the history of this bill, and hopefully I'm hoping that the three parties are listening now and knowing that they should be recognizing the Filipino community regardless of their party, because Filipino-Canadian community is so important to the life of Canada and Ontario. Mabuhay.
Thank you so much, Mabuhay. Next, I will go to Daniela to share your thoughts.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Daniela Salcedo, and I am here representing FOCASA, which is the Filipino Canadian Students Association. And I'm also here in support of MPP Dolly's Bill 217. And many of us know here that Filipino Heritage Month in June has been federally recognized now for several years. But as Tita Paulina mentioned, the provincial government has the responsibility and has the power to look over sectors such as healthcare and education. I personally look forward to the Filipino Heritage Month in Ontario to not only be a celebration of culture, arts, and entertainment, but a legitimate and tangible call to action for the Ontario government to combat our issues firsthand, specifically concerning migrant worker precariousness, newcomer resettlement, deprofessionalization, and so many more. Currently, Toronto's Filipino community makes up for over 60% of Filipinos in Canada. So I hope that this bill being passed into legislation will urge the provincial government to further initiatives for Filipino Ontarians. Thank you once again, MPP Dolly.
Thank you so much, Daniela Salcedo. I think I pronounced your last name wrong before. I apologize for that.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. And I agree with you. I think the large population across Toronto as well as the province is a reflection of why we need this bill. Next, I will go to Steve Pagao. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you very much, MPP Dolly, for having us in this conference, and hopefully our parliamentarians would hear the voices of our Filipino community. Yeah, I'm just wondering why it is just the provincial that's not approving this June as Filipino Heritage Month, while in fact the federal government has approved it or proclaimed it, as well as the city has approved it. And I wish that the parliamentarians, Ontario parliamentarians, would see the importance and significance of the existence of Filipinos here in Ontario, particularly. Out of the million population that we have now, actually more than 50% of that are living in Ontario. And that's such a big number for us to consider when it comes to developments socially, economically, and whatever. You know, Filipinos has been contributing a lot in the progress and development of the community, especially in Ontario. And I wish that as a business leader here, we would be able to help out Paulina and Daniela here in trying to voice out that this Filipino Heritage Month is so important to us Filipinos to gather together. You know, although the businesses, we've been doing some yearly events of exhibits, we would want this Filipino Heritage Month to be a part of our activities as a business, you know, not only to exhibit our own products or businesses or trades, but so much so with our culture, heritage, which is very rich, that we would say Filipinos, if you would look at the service industry, hotels, restaurants, and most of all, hospitals, you would see majority of those people there serving for our community are Filipinos. And this is what I think is the most important that our parliamentarians will be considering in trying to approve this month as Filipino Heritage Month, so as for us to come together. We have time to come together, not only for us Filipinos, but also the entire Canadian population, to share and embrace our own culture and heritage. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you, Paulina. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, all of you. I couldn't have said it better myself. This is the time we can make it happen. And I think the Filipino community's contributions across every sector, especially whether it's retail, hospitality, and more importantly now within the healthcare sector, it is I think we just cannot emphasize it enough. And I think it's time that we recognize it. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Maisha, who's doing everything in the background all at once, and see if we have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have Christine. Christine, I'm going to ask you to unmute and ask your question.
Oh, hi, thank you. I know that Ms. Corpus had already talked earlier about the difference between how it was passed on the federal level and now on the provincial level. But can you expand it more? Because a lot of the people in the community are still trying to grasp the concept between being passed on the federal versus the provincial and what it really means to people here in Ontario. Maybe some specific examples of how this could really connect with them and impact them as Filipino Canadians in Ontario. Thank you.
Go ahead, Paulina. Or Christian, did you want me to go ahead, or Paulina?
Maybe we'll start with Miss Corpus and then Miss Begum, if you can expand further on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yes. I'm not very familiar with the workings of the government, but I do know that each level of government is responsible for something. And I know that at the Ontario level or any provincial level, education is under their portfolio. And education is so important, especially for the children of the Filipino Canadians, because that is where the curriculum lives. Any approval on the curriculum of the schools are done at the provincial level at the Ministry of Education. If there is no proclamation at the Ontario level, I think that would be it would be difficult. It would be difficult for us to make sure that the Filipino Canadian story or narrative is part of the mainstream. So that is from my point of view as a common, Canadian here in Ontario. So that's the only thing that affected me in terms of the responsibility of the Ontario or the provincial government on these things. So Dali, because you're in the provincial level, you probably know more about how this works in terms of the jurisdictions of the different levels.
Yeah, thank you for that, and completely agree. But I also want to emphasize, I think there are a lot of other Heritage Month bills that have both federal, provincial, and city and municipal levels of recognition. And we have seen quite a few different other diverse communities across the country that have that, from British Columbia to here in Ontario. And I think the other important part that I want to highlight, which might show that the difference in terms of this legislation, is that more than anything, we would like to take this bill and with the support and with the asks of many community leaders before we did the first reading. One of the main aspects that community leaders called for was that this bill should not be just celebration. It's wonderful to celebrate. We want to recognize the culture and celebrate that. But beyond that, we need to recognize that at the provincial level, healthcare, a huge aspect that impacts the Filipino community, as well as education. And at both of these sectors, we have to make sure that their work and the way the livelihood's been impacted needs to be recognized and needs to be raised in terms of what kind of support does the community need and what kind of recognition that individuals need. So if we're talking about personal support workers, for example, so in the care community, a lot of Filipinas work in the care community, and I think we have to recognize them, but also understand what recognition really means, not just calling them superheroes or but making sure that they're paid enough. And all of that fight goes within the recognition of this community, and I think really uniting the community all together. Same thing with the education as well, making sure that if we're looking at different curriculums and how we want to have the aspect of education, because I think awareness and education about the community is also very important. So when we look at the province, and me being a member of the provincial parliament, that's what I heard from the local community members, and I wanted to highlight that within this legislation, which is why we specifically focused on COVID, as well as the healthcare work, as well as the provincial jurisdiction of this.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any other questions. Christine, do you have a follow-up? Okay. So with no further questions, I believe we're good.
Yeah, can I have a question, MPP Dali? This is Steve here. Yeah, I'm just wondering if the government, it's particularly Ontario, would have to set up fundings for this kind of celebrations, not only for the Filipinos, but all ethnic groups, wherein they could freely access that such kind of funding, if ever. Will there be something that would be set up not only during the time of pandemic, but also onwards, without considering pandemic, so that the community could really have some support financially, especially in doing their kind of culture and heritage celebration in the province. Would there be any thought about that, providing some funding in particular for this kind of celebrations, though?
So that's a great question. And I think that comes with the aspect of education and how do we take this proclamation further in terms of doing, if it means programming, if it means different events, for example. And I think the federal government as well as provincial government has funding for different programs that takes place, whether it's during Canada Day, for example, or any sort of community initiatives. And I think that's where we'll find out about Filipino organizations that are looking at specific fundings and how we can see if there is anything available. With the proclamation of this bill, unfortunately, does not have money attached to it because it's a much broader bill to recognize the month. And obviously the month of June was chosen because of Philippines Independence Day being on June 12th. So we're hoping that once this is passed, we can take it further and focus on community initiatives and education programming so that there is funding involved there.
Yeah, just me interrupting. I know that in one of the organizations that I've been involved with, I mean, that's the one organization that you mentioned when you introduced me, the Philippine Independence Day Council, which I'm just a member of that. They were able to access the Celebrate Ontario, which is about celebration of heritage, and that I think is open to everyone, including the Filipinos, of course, but it's not a well-known funding source basically at this point. And I know that in the federal level, there's a lot of funding sources like CS Mari, that's the Community Service Anti-Racism Discrimination, multicultural anti-racism funding. And so there's the funding at federal level, and there's also a corresponding funding at the Ontario level. So those are many resources to help the community celebrate Filipino Heritage Month, or even beyond that, to make sure that people learn and know more about the Filipino heritage and culture.
That's great. Thank you, Paulina, for the examples. And if folks are interested, what we can do is search some information about the specific fundings and share that with you as well. Daniela, did you want to add anything? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up unless there is any other questions.
I can add another specific example pertaining to education. I know that I recently was able to find out about PASOK, which stands for Philippine Arts and Social Studies in the Ontario curriculum, but this is a very Toronto-based initiative. And, prior to attending Pinoyers in Parliament, which is a national student-led conference that's usually held in February, I wasn't aware that this existed. So with the help of the proclamation of the Filipino Heritage Month in Ontario, I strongly believe that this type of initiative, this type of community programming will be even, further sustained, further supported by the provincial government once this bill becomes law. So that happens, and hopefully, a lot of our young Filipino community members are able to learn about our culture and history as well.
Yes. I just wanted to follow up with Daniela. Yes. At the first year where the Toronto Catholic District School Board declared the Filipino Heritage Month, there was that initiative for a pilot curriculum, but it's only for Toronto Catholic District School Board, because any curriculum to be widely applied to everyone, including the public school, it has to have the Ontario Ministry of Education, I think, approval or something. So yeah, so it was limited to that. Because of COVID, though, I am not sure if it is still being done now, or if it's being evaluated, because it was just a pilot project at the time.
Thank you so much, all of you. Excellent examples and great questions, Steve. Unless we have any other questions, I will say thank you very much. And this is not just for us now, but it's also for the next generation. As Daniela has pointed out, I hope that this afternoon the government will debate with us and vote for this legislation bill 217, an act to proclaim the month of June as Filipino Heritage Month. Thank you once again to all of you who joined. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.